A very warm welcome to today's session on making heritage buildings greener, a sustainable conservation of our culture. It's a very unique and rare topic that is not discussed very often. So we in IGBC, as part of the World Green Building Week celebrations, thought of focusing on this area, which has tremendous potential, and running a online session, a brief, interesting online session on this topic. We thank all the participants and speakers who have joined, including our chairperson from Kolkata chapter, Mrs. Ghosh, Architect Sakuntala Ghosh, Mr. M. Anand, Principal Councillor, CIS IGBC, Mr. Rakesh Bhatia, Senior Vice President, EcoFirst, and Mr. G.M. Kapoor, State Convener, INTACH. In this regard, we would like to specially thank INTACH as a supporting partner. They are a leading organization involved in the restoration of heritage buildings and structures. He is also a supporting partner in this session that we are doing. He is an IGBC member, an active IGBC member of the Kolkata chapter. We are thankful to him for being a supporting partner and bringing a lot of new perspectives in this portfolio of greening heritage buildings. He is a member of the Institution of Engineers. He is an independent management consultant. Currently, he is the state convener of the West Bengal and Calcutta regional chapters of the Indian National Trust for Art and Cultural Heritage. And INTACH has also been active in the heritage conservation and restoration, architectural, material, and natural heritage all over the country. So as you can understand, participants, this is a slightly different flavor compared to what you have been hearing so far. We wish to listen to a new kind of perspective from Mr. G.M. Kapoor.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Many thanks to CII's Indian Green Building Council and, of course, our chapter chairman, Ms. Sakuntala Ghosh, for inviting me to speak at this online session on making heritage buildings greener. It is a subject very close to us in INTACH, India's largest NGO dedicated to conservation. We strongly believe buildings are green buildings. These were built when there was no electricity, there was no air conditioning and other amenities which are used now. And then they are all green buildings to the extent that they use all the natural elements to their advantage, such as sunlight, wind, etc., provide light and air circulation to their advantage. And retrofitting is certainly a move in the right direction to make heritage buildings greener in today's circumstances. As Mr. Sen just mentioned, this is going to be slightly different from the technical presentations which were made earlier, but it will give you an innovative approach to repurposing and adaptively reusing heritage buildings. I would like to take you through a presentation on the adaptive reuse of built heritage, which shows some innovative ways in which heritage can be reused. So to start with, we give you a few definitions from the Borra Charter. The Borra Charter was actually adopted in 1979, Australia, ICOMOS, and it is now adopted worldwide. We ourselves in INTACH have a charter which we also utilize, but here these definitions are very apt. So, cultural significance means aesthetic, historic, scientific, social, or spiritual value for past, present, or future generations. And conservation means all the processes of looking after a place so as to retain its cultural significance. Now, to understand conservation, conservation is not just preservation. And what is very important, conservation is not anti-development. Most people get the impression, oh, these conservative guys, they are conservative and that's why they go for conservation and it's anti-development. They will come in and they will not allow other development activities to take. That is not at all a fact. And conservation is not always to convert into a museum or art gallery. So conservation is the management of change. It is adaptive reuse, it is restoration, reconstruction, it is preservation, it is alteration, addition, as well as subtraction. So mind you, there's subtraction also possible. And to understand conservation further, we adopt a value-based conservation approach. A historic environment is a shared resource. Everyone should be able to participate in sustaining the historic environment. Understanding the significance of places is vital. Significant places should be managed to sustain their values. Decisions about change must be reasonable, transparent, and consistent. Documenting and learning from decisions is essential. So adaptive reuse is creative problem solving for reviving and repurposing existing buildings. This is what is adaptive reuse. Creative problem solving for reviving and repurposing existing buildings. These are the various facets, different elements which make up the adaptive reuse paradigm. So there are a lot of items here, just to give you an example of what it involves. Now, here these are a few questions. Should it be implemented as a policy? Not necessary. Is it an ideologically unacceptable suggestion? I don't think so. Rather, it should be used to augment the limited resources by offering creative conservation ideas while still retaining the values and significance of historic sites. As cities transform and grow and historic spaces are repurposed, the revitalization of old buildings or sites for new uses helps to contribute to a sustainable built environment. The reuse of historic has an environmental, social, cultural, and economic benefits. Innovative conceived design can be instrumental in ensuring heritage values endure with the changing life and use of places. Now, some examples which may be more interesting. Now, this, as you know, industrial plant. In fact, it is a steel plant. Here, this is another view of the steel plant. This slot is a National Historic Landmark in Birmingham, Alabama, in the United States. It operated as a pig iron producing blast furnace from 1882 to 1971. After closing, it became one of the first industrial sites and the only blast furnace in the US to be preserved for public use. In 1980, the furnaces were designated National Historic Landmark. The site currently serves as an interpretive museum of industry and hosts a nationally recognized metal arts program. It also serves as a concert and festival venue. So here is something unique. Repurposing and reutilizing a defunct steel plant. Another example. This is a coal mine industrial complex, simply known as the Zollverein. It was a coke oven factory in Essen, Germany, and a UNESCO World. Germans had the foresight to let the complex remain as a tourist attraction that now boasts the world's largest ice skating rink in winter and an industrial strength Ferris wheel. Another example where instead of destroying it, you can imagine if they were to build a new facility, how much more steel, cement, building materials, etc. would have gone into it, and the carbon footprint it would have created. So imagine the carbon footprint it has saved by repurposing this. There's a Paris Promenade Mate, a restored viaduct that now has trails, tunnel trenches, viaduct footbridges, shops, and other amenities. I think this is a familiar sight. A lot of Indian cities you can use repurpose viaducts, the under part of the viaducts for such purposes. it all requires a little bit of imagination and the will to utilize spaces. Here, imagine, this is something which is most unusual. A church is now serving as a restaurant and microbrewery called the Church Works Brew. Not very possible maybe in our country, but they have managed to do that. The church has stopped being a church and is now a restaurant and a microbrewery. Is the Pratt Street power plant in Baltimore, which is now a retail complex. How it has been repurposed, as much of the facade, as much of the elements, heritage elements intact. This is just to give you an idea of what can be done and what has been done and should be done. Tate Modern is a art gallery. A lot of you would have been to. It housed the former Bankside power station. The power station closed in 1981 and they decided to reinvent the current building instead of demolishing it. The Tate Modern is an example of adaptive reuse, the process of finding new life in old buildings. Again, all of you are green building experts. You can calculate the amount of carbon footprint that this building has saved. The green, it is a totally green initiative. They could have got, they should have got, I don't know whether they did at that time, but a lot of carbon credits for such a initiative. Here we come to our own city of Calcutta. I think a lot of people would have, most of you should be aware of the Princep Memorial. It was lying in derelict condition about 30 years back. It was restored by INTACH in 1993. It is a magnificent colonnaded structure, and it was set up for the welcoming of dignitaries who arrived by ship in those days, which is just on the banks of the river. And while it is a monument, we decided to repurpose it as a open air. It has been used by us many times, and today it has become a popular and the heritage remains. This is before restoration. This building was built in 1833. In 1996, was slated for demolition. The CPWD had decided, it's in Dalhousie Square in Calcutta. At INTACH took this up as a major challenge and approached the governor at that time, Mr. Viren Shah. He was very sympathetic to the heritage cause, and he immediately took up the matter with the government in Delhi, and we managed to get the demolition stayed. Is 95,000 square feet in area. We found out that after demolition, as per the current building bylaws, they would have been able to construct 100,000 square feet of new area. So imagine for 5,000 extra area, how much of carbon footprint they would have created. This building is a perfectly elegant building, and I will show you in the next few slides what it looks like now. Here, this was the demolition which had already started. There were domes here. These were the domes which were demolished, and after we got the demolition stopped, this became the condition. ASI took over and they started restoration work. And this is in the process of restoration. This is what it looked like. And this is where the domes were. They were removed, but they had been demolished. So this became like an open air atrium. So again, to focus attention on the possibilities of utilizing this building, we organized we organized a theatre festival in that amphitheatre, in that open air atrium. And we had a most modern theatre coming from Norway in a most old heritage building, just to give the contrast that this can be done. This was a Norwegian theatre group, Verdens Teatret, and it happened in 2011. Today, and it has added to the glory and the grandeur of the BBD Bagh area. It is also today it is an art gallery. The Prime Minister came in January this year and inaugurated this building, and he was so impressed that he had, in fact, he inaugurated 3 buildings at that time. This one, the galleries at Victoria Memorial and Metcalfe Hall, which is another heritage building. And he promised to make the Calcutta's Indian Museum one of the world-class museums in the country. Is a grade 2 heritage building in Calcutta, fallen on bad days, but after restoration, this is what it looks like. There was no possibility of adding much more area to that. So it is very important to note that heritage buildings, by just pulling down heritage buildings and constructing towers every time, you may not get addition to floor space. This is the old silver mint built in 1817. It's a huge plant. It's like a factory. 1817, totally green, huge cavernous factory spaces, using all natural light, natural air. This has been abandoned and has gone to another area, and it is now crying out for restoration and reuse. We have given, this is the layout of that mint complex. This was the factory. This is the frontage which you have just seen, that looking structure. These were, this is the house where the mint master, James Prinsep, used to live. These are other plant factory buildings. This is an open air water body. These are the quarters where the staff of the mint used to live. We have proposed again a lot of multi-use activities. This is like a heritage hotel, food court, open air amphitheater, art gallery, and a commercial complex. So it can be, we worked out an economic package also for this, how it can be a viable proposition. But hopefully something will happen. Let's see. Another similar colonial structure lying in derelict condition. This is known as the Salt Gola in Howrah. Is the Salt Commissioner's office and warehouses. This is the today. These are the warehouses. There's in 27 acres of land, there are about 3 lakh square feet of warehousing space, which is in this condition. And we have suggested that this can look like this after restoration. And again, multi-use activities can be designed. This is a open. This is again a water body. Now this is a water body in the back. Open air again. Amphitheater has been created. Possibilities are endless. Here is a Rajbari in Bengal called Itachuna Rajbari, which has been repurposed as a heritage hotel. Another one, ruins. The passion of the person who bought it has put it back as one of the leading heritage hotels in the country. Some more examples of how in Bharatpur, the State Museum is in the Bharatpur Palace, and how it has been, where the galleries have been created, and it is being, it's become one of the very popular uses of this. This another very imaginative use. This is old Salem jail in Massachusetts. It's been made into a residential complex. Those who live in Calcutta would know that there's the Presidency and Alipur jail complex, which again is heritage in every sense of the word. I don't know whether the authorities consider making this into a high-class residential complex. I mean, this is a possibility. Look at the way it has been repurposed. So there are endless uses for endless possibilities of utilizing heritage buildings for different adaptive uses. This is known as the Source. It's in Denver's Reno neighborhood and has been used primarily for industrial and warehouse purposes. 1,000 square foot artisan market offering everything from freshly baked bread to craft cocktails. Its 15 tenants include Acorn, a wood-fired restaurant and cocktail bar, Comida, a modern Mexican restaurant, Western Daughters, butcher shop, and Beat and Yarrow florist. I mean, it's just giving the names don't mean very much to us here, but how it has been repurposed and reutilized. So at the end of this presentation, I would like to the need of the hour is not a perfect solution, but intelligent and imaginative thinking. The reintegration of heritage into everyday experiences of people. Visible conservation approach which does not undermine the values and significance and provides a long-term sustainable solution. And thank you, dear audience. I'd also like to thank my colleagues who helped me in preparing this. I heard one question in the after the last presentation about the CPWD and other government agencies. Well, we are working on the restoration of customs in Calcutta, where we have we have already discussed with the CPWD to introduce as much of green elements as possible in the restoration, and hopefully they will be incorporating all our suggestions. Thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed the presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Kapoor. We did indeed enjoy the presentation. Absolutely a different flavor to what we are very used to. So thank you very much. It was a fantastic recommendation by our chairperson to include you in this session, sir. Thank you very much. I'll try to sum up one query that we have received further to your presentation, sir. There is a nut mandi near Bauli, Rajbari, almost under ruins. Or apart from that, any other current projects that you are working on which you would like to highlight in Kolkata? Because a majority of our participants are from East and Kolkata, sir. If you can shed some light as to how they can further get associated with INTACH or in this particular process of restoration, sir.
Yeah, we would welcome people to join us in our movement, and they help us in taking the movement of heritage conservation ahead. We would welcome anybody is free to join INTACH. They have some interest in the restoration and conservation of heritage projects. As I said, we also, apart from our the building restoration activities. The building, as I mentioned, we are working on the Customs House. That is a heritage building, and when they felt that it is in need of intervention, they invited us, and we are advising CPWD on the restoration process. That is one. We are in discussion with various other government agencies, such as the Eastern Command, because they have a lot of heritage which is in need of intervention. And in fact, we would have probably started some activities, but because of the COVID pandemic, everything has got delayed. We also have an art conservation center where we restore material heritage in Calcutta. And here we have been doing a lot of work on the restoration of, artworks, very important artworks like the one in St. John's Church, The Last Supper. I don't know how many of you have seen it, but it's one of the most magnificent paintings in the city, painted about 250 years ago by Johann Zoffany. And that is a painting which was restored by us. So, like that, we have been restoring paintings, artworks. We are in the process of restoring a collection of rare books in the library of the Fort William. So there's a continuous process. We welcome people to join us in our activities. And as far as the mandir near this Bawali Rajbari, unfortunately, while the owners of the present owners of the Rajbari, they are very keen to restore that. I believe the local population, there are some elements who are coming in the way. But that also can be a very magnificent attraction over there. We are working with the Port Trust. There they have some old ammunition batteries in the along the banks of the river, which they want to repurpose. So we are advising them. So projects keep coming up all the time, and we'll be happy to have people join us.
Thank you, Mr. Kapoor. We in IGBC look forward to associating with INTACH in greening many heritage buildings that you are involved in, sir. You all are doing a fabulous work. Thank you for being a part of this session, sir.
Thank you very much.
Our pleasure, sir.
Mr. Kapoor, thank you so much for your wisdom and your knowledge and for being an active part of IGBC. It has been great. And I think if out of 138 or so participants we had, Yutabroto, at one point of time I was seeing about 138 participants. So if even 5% of those people get inspired to do something actively, I would say this has been a really worthwhile, wonderful session, contributing locally to contribute globally. So a global kind of situation. So we do our bit and contribute to the World Green Building Week at the same time.